dare great things for Christ. Christ calls us to dare great things. In the marketplace, as well as in the mission field, there has never been a time like the present for the spirit of the Catholic entrepreneur. Now is the time for men and women of great courage and great vision to engage our church and our culture. Now is the time to dare great things. And here is your host as we dare great things, Father Nathan Cromley, the president and founder of the St. John Institute.
At its essence, leadership is a question of vision. And vision, at its heart, is a matter of creativity. Although not always comfortable, being in charge of an operation means finding an answer no matter what. Good leaders do this every time. Great leaders do this in extraordinary ways. But getting to the heart of how to innovate and find new answers means getting to the heart of the human person and their freedom. And this is why it's important to talk about the power of grace to create new ideas and innovation. This is part 4 of our series of Leaders in a Broken World. Hey everybody, welcome back to St. John Leadership Network, and we're doing another class here for you. This is part 4 of our series on Leaders in a Broken World. And I use that title on purpose because it rekindles in us the real sense of our mission. I think so many times we identify business as a selfish endeavor, and we allow other people to do that to us. I don't know why you guys do that. Why do you let everybody treat you so badly? As a priest, even when I walk around and I say, I do ministry to the world of business, people kind of sigh like, oh, well, I guess you're just doing that for selfish, terrible people. And I'm like, exactly. I mean, isn't that what priests are supposed to be doing? Aren't we supposed to be working with people that need help, But on the other hand, I think to myself, well, what sector of our world isn't selfish and broken, right? Every sector. If we work with families, we're dealing with families that have troubles. If we're dealing with young people, we're looking for the ones who are going astray. I mean, the church's mission is to go towards those who are not saved and bring salvation. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means that we bring the healing of God where it's needed. And of course, it's needed in the body, it's needed in our families, in our relationships. It's also needed in our own heart and in our own freedom, right? So you're like, well, how does God do that? How does God bring his salvation? And most people think, well, it means a preacher, so if we do a revival under a tent like Billy Graham used to do, that would be the secret, And so, well, I'll do that. They're called parish missions, by the way. They're in almost every single one of your Catholic churches every year, and you guys don't go. I mean, the attendance of a parish mission is like 1/10 of the parish will end up showing up at a parish mission. Well, why is that? I think it's because people in the end, they want salvation in a different way. So on the one hand, you say, okay, so saving souls and bringing Jesus means a preacher on a stage. And on the other hand, you don't go to hear the preacher on the stage. So the preachers pick up microphones, and then we start institutes like the St. John Institute, and then we pick up microphones and we do podcasts and classes that they dare great things, in order to get in front of you so that you can hear this message. But at the same time, that's only a very small part of evangelization, because I can make you hear a message. I can give you ideas, but actually effectuating change, that's a whole different thing. Effectuating change means taking the ideas and translating them into behaviors, into actions. All right, well, where are the fields of action? Well, if you think about it, you've got every spot where we have a social activity, right? Like our cultural actions, our school boards, our politics, running different forms of organizations that benefit our cities, okay? You've got the field of action, which is the family, the number one field of action. You've got the field of action of your marriage, of course. And then you've got the field of action of work, the world of industry. And each of those field of actions is influenced by those who actually act in them. In other words, quite simply, leaders. This is what we're all about. That's what you're all about. You see, what I'm trying to put out here is that if you really want to change the world, you need leaders who act in it. Okay, well then, who are the actors that are acting in the field of industry? And of course, the importance of industry is out of this world. Okay, so that's industry, but you can think of that in terms of service, in terms of restaurants, and all of our professional lives. Well, it's you. It's our professional people, Christians engaged in the field of work. Now you think about the importance of this. Oh my goodness. Without the economy, you don't have a society. It's the basics of life. It's like a wise man once told me, listen, love is great, but remember, Father, you can't eat love. He was kind of putting me in my place. He's like, listen, you priests think you're all that important because you guys are all about ideas. You're all about love, but you can't eat love. And I thought to myself, he's absolutely correct, right? So that's why I need, my role, I can't stop, doing my role. There's an important role there, sanctifying, teaching, instructing, encouraging, sending you out. It's the ministry of the word that's been entrusted to the priest. Yeah, well, the ministry of the machine has been entrusted to you. And the ministry of law, and the ministry of medicine, and the ministry of engineering. You think those aren't ministries? I'd like to say, you know what? It's kind of amazing because if I were to say, you go out on the street and you feed the poorest of the poor who are laying on the sidewalks, you'd say, oh, what a ministry. What love he puts as he feeds them. And I would like to say that's exactly what you're doing every day when you're manufacturing food. You're feeding the poor. The difference is that you're making a profit off of it. So you say, oh, it's not a ministry. I'm like, why would profit mean that it's not a ministry, first of all? I mean, number one, the profit's necessary to maintain the business. It's also necessary to maintain the investment in the company. And that company continues to do good, namely feeding a broken world. So then in the end, you're like, well, the difference is profits and profiteering. You can make a profit, you must not profiteer. The difference is that a profit is necessary, a profiteering is taking advantage of a situation. But in both situations, look at what you're doing. You're literally producing food. You're literally producing food. You are feeding people. And the fact is, in a healthy world, that those people can then pay you back for it doesn't make a difference. You're still giving a service. And if you put your love into that, and you do it fairly and equitably, and you produce a company that can give benefits to its employees, can employ thousands of people, can lift up school systems and sport systems throughout the world, think of the good that you're doing. And now do it with great love. I want to say your problem doesn't come from the fact that you are a business person. Your problem comes from the fact that you're not a saint. If I could bring the holiness of the heart of Mother Teresa and put it into the power of an industrial titan, wouldn't we have a wonderful thing? It's not the only thing. We certainly still want Mother Teresa to be Mother Teresa, but we also need to feed the masses. And we need to be able to produce chairs for the masses. And we need to be able to do law for the masses. The fact is, the human being has a lot of needs, and all of them are precious to God. And businesses serve those needs. It's like the number one rule that Jeff Bezos said when they asked him how he became so successful. His answer, I gave the customer what they wanted. Well, on the one hand, you could say, oh, that's just business. On the other hand, you're like, what a wonderful thing. He gave the people what they wanted. He met the customer's needs. Well, what if we met the customer's needs in the name of Christ? Wouldn't we be evangelizing? Yes. And that's not the only way. I've talked about that a million times. I want to just claim this idea that you are sent into the world on the mission of Jesus, and to not let yourself define yourself as the non-believers define themselves, okay? You're not the world's business people. You are Christ's business leaders. And that means you don't do it just the way the world tells you to do it. You do it the way Christ tells you to do it. And that doesn't necessarily change the structure of the thing, the way that the things that you have to do every day, your skill sets or what your business day looks like, but it will definitely change the motivation in your heart. It will change the spirit with which you do it. And that spirit, my friends, is what shapes a culture. And now all of a sudden our companies become what they really should be. Real moments for everyone involved in the whole enterprise to live at a higher level than they live anywhere else. If we do it right, our companies, our businesses can lift up the world of the family. Every worker, every customer, every supplier who interacts with us is a member of someone else's family. And if we can give them an elevated, wholesome, better experience, well, we've just given a human person an experience of a better life. And that redounds, it echoes, it trickles down, it affects, and it lifts up everyone else in society. It's your mission. And it's been given to you by God. And on Judgment Day, remember the line, to whom much has been given, much will be expected. What are you doing for God with your power and influence?
Would you like to hear more from Father Nathan? Join the St. John Leadership Network and receive a 2-minute glance at the gospel every Sunday morning right to your phone. To learn more, go to www.stjohnleadershipnetwork.org/member and join for free today.
So we've already gone through a couple different examples of the way that the world that is broken can be healed by the grace of Christ. And we talked about this in the world of business already. I want to focus now in one that's particularly interesting to me. It's the lack of innovation and the lack of creativity. I talked to a guy who recently was trying to buy an exercise machine, okay? So he went online and he looked for these different types of machines that he was looking for. And he kept coming across the fact that the prices varied all over the place when he was looking. And he thought, I wonder why some are so valuable and some aren't. And then he looked into it more and he discovered that this exercise machine used to be designed as almost a piece of art. It was made of wood. It was solid. It had a guy's name attached to it. They used to put these different kind of chrome things on it to make it look beautiful. And it was built to last a lifetime. And then the company sold. And what happened? Well, the brand was bought by a foreign entity, and the foreign entity simply changed the construction by watering it down, making it garbage, and ruined the brand. And now they no longer build that machine. So this man who was looking for the machine had to literally buy a machine that was 30 years old, simply because that one's still working great. What happened? It was because this other entity didn't care about the brand, and now that whole machine is gone. Right? And that happens again and again and again. And yet, in a way, it's kind of like, how sad, right? Because all of us would love a machine that would last a lifetime, that's built with pride, and the machines had sold millions, literally millions of this machine, and now you can't even find it anymore. And there's an example of a broken world. Because on the one hand, you've got a person who's so proud that they put their name on the design and they create something that's worth it and a company that's organized behind it and customers that reward the company with their sales. And then on the other hand, you have, watering things down because of the coefficients of manufacturing to make a bottom line profit that kills the spirit of the creativity of the thing. There's something human about creating. There's something marvelous about striving for something excellent and high and wonderful at the best quality. It's delivering a service that goes over the top for the customer. When you're there at a restaurant, you notice it. When your waitress or waiter is a professional and they're proud of their service, they make the evening wonderful for you. And your tip goes through the roof because you're appreciative of the fact that this person cared. They had this spirit of innovation to listen to you, to take your order in a certain kind of way that's marvelous. I was listening the other day to a certain commentary on professional sports. There's some professional sports where the ratings are declining. And the old timers from the sport are saying it's because the players are no longer allowed to be creative. Now, I have no idea whether this is true or not. I'm not here making a statement on it. It's just interesting to see the same theme going across the board. That there's a spirit that's attractive and powerful that comes from the creative energy of a person. And that powerful energy innovates and pushes things to a new level and brings things upward. And you can almost say that kind of energy allows God to work in the world. When you look at the history of the saints, there's some incredibly creative people. Just look at Moses, for example. This is a fun one. He literally leads, I would estimate it, at 1.8 million people. It says 600,000 men. So then you add, their wives with them, that's 600,000 women, that's 1.2 million. And you put one child per family at a minimum, you're at 1.8 million people. That's how many people Moses was leading in the desert. And he gets out there and then the people say, where's our water? And Moses looks around and he's like, I don't know what to do. So he prays to God, and God says, hey, Moses, take a stick and hit that rock with the stick. And I'm going to make water come out of the rock. If we talk about creativity, this is incredible. And that's exactly what Moses does. He walks over to the rock, and he hits the rock with a stick, and water comes out of the rock. Right? If we give God a chance to answer the questions, he can do some pretty amazing things. The people are hungry. Moses is like, God, I don't have any food. God's like, no problem. I'll rain bread down from heaven. And that's what happens. And then the people say, we're sick of bread. So God says, I'll give you quail. So you'll eat meat and bread every day until it comes out of your nostrils. That's a direct quote from the Bible. God is so creative. He can walk through water and have it part on both sides, left and right. When you let a leader lead with God, what can't he discover? What can't he find? An example from the secular world. I mean, look at how John Kennedy inspired us to do things that we'd never done. If you go back and listen to his speech at Rice University when he launched us towards the mission of landing a man on the moon, he literally said, we're going to do all these things with technology that does not even exist yet. I mean, you list off this whole thing. We're going to travel at this speed. We're going to, have materials that can withstand these temperatures. And we don't know how we're going to do it yet. We're going to find that out, okay? But we're going to do it in 10 years. It's incredible. That's the creative energy of inspiration and innovation. And that's what drives great leadership. Yeah, well, if you don't have a spirit within you of freedom, if the freedom of the human heart is quelched under the strict requirements of economic profit, if that's the only thing that matters, well, you wonder if innovation can survive. An example of that is our soft drink industry. When was the last time you saw a new soft drink introduced? Isn't that amazing? I mean, after all these years, we still have a dark one, we have a light one, we have an orange one, we have a yellow one, and they basically taste the same. Isn't there some way to do this better? Well, of course there is. Well, why can't it break through? Isn't that interesting? Why can't innovation break through? Well, if you look at the way the market is set up for soft drinks, it's incredibly restrictive. It's incredibly against anyone disrupting that market. And so it's a very hard thing to do. What we need are some disruptors there. We need some disruptors in other places as well, because what is a disruptor? A disruptor is where the idea of what is good and better can overcome what is expedient and established. It doesn't mean it's always better, but it does mean that the newness can refresh things and might be able to bring us to achieve new levels, new heights that we can't achieve when the bottom line is the only factor determining decisions. And isn't that the role of a leader? Isn't that what we're supposed to be bringing? Absolutely. We're called to meet the needs of the world where they're at with the best possible solutions. And that requires the ability to adjust to new circumstances, to change things up, to innovate. And that requires a heart that is free. That's where Christ comes in.
Would you like to start your Thursday mornings with a scriptural leadership lesson? Join the St. John Leadership Network, where Father Nathan hosts a 30-minute call at 6:30 a.m. in all 4 U.S. time zones. To learn more, go to www.stjohnleadershipnetwork.org/member and join for free today.
I love talking about freedom. I love the concept of freedom. It's always puzzled me because as a Catholic priest, it's something you hear all the time. It's like a thing that philosophers talk about, and so therefore we priests learn, and we stay behind that word freedom, oftentimes forgetting that we don't really know what it even means. And neither do the people that are listening to us. I mean, we think about freedom, we think about civil liberties, right? The ability to do what I want to do. And then, of course, as Catholics, you then hear, well, no, that's not really freedom. And John Paul II gave the famous definition. The freedom is the ability to do what you ought to do. And then people are like, well, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. The ability to do what I ought is freedom. But what I actually think is because it got lost in the translation. Remember, John Paul II was from Poland, right? So he was not a native English speaker. And he was subject to translators who themselves might be out of touch with what the average person needs to hear. What he meant was that freedom is your ability to love and to put your love into action. Now, to love truly, of course, because it's not just love passionately or wildly, but it means to when you really have a genuine love and for something that's really authentically good, really a good thing, well, then your ability to move towards that is your freedom. Well, that means that suddenly the world is full of creative energy because everybody's freedom is as unique as their identity. Just because my no two loves are the same. The love that you have for someone is not the same as someone else's love for that person. And how wonderful when the two of you, well, that you find your own ways to express that love. One does it by providing. One does it by presence. Another does it by throwing a party. I mean, you have as many ways of loving as you have children, right? And every child finds their own unique expression of this energy of life. as they're captivated by the beauty of what is outside of them, bigger than them, and they follow that beauty. And when you do that, suddenly you unlock the mind to discover ways that are unique, that are absolutely pricelessly irreplaceable in the world. And that's freedom, that energy of freedom that's deep down inside of every human being, when placed in positions of power, becomes innovation. It becomes somebody who says, I'm going to lead my company this way because I can, darn it all. And because when I do that, it becomes winsome, it becomes attractive. I mean, we love it when our leaders have that type of innovation, when they have that creative energy to re-express, reimagine, find a new way to drive things forward. I know that this can be exhausting for some because some people just want a job and it's hard to follow an innovative leader. And I'm not saying that you have to be innovative in every space and at all times, but I am saying that you need to be free in every space and at all times. It might not be the process that needs to be changed. It might not be the product that needs to be changed. But the culture always is something to be renewed. The relationships, the how that we work together as a team is as fresh as every team that we have. And the biggest enemy to this, honestly, is sin. Now, that's thinking at it from a purely Christian point of view. If I was speaking in a secular world, I couldn't say this, right? But I'm not speaking in a secular world. I'm speaking to you, Christian business leaders, okay? And I'm saying that the effect of sin is anonymity. Actions that do not have a name because they do not flow from that unique identity of love in the human heart. It's very simple to think of it this way. When God calls us as a human being to love him, he's calling us to be absolutely unique. Now, the uniqueness is not something we strive for in and of itself. It's an effect of the fact that if God's calling me, I'm going to respond with who I am, right? I'm going to find who I am. I'm going to discover depths of my soul that I never knew were there. And of course, we do this with respect to God. And you also see this as a foretaste even in your marriages. I mean, when you love someone so much as to have a child, and then you love that child so much, at the end of your life, you have grown. And we've all been able to see and witness the depths of who you are by the way you invest in your relationships. Well, it's the same way, of course, in our spirituality. And how wonderfully rich is the human soul. I remember one time being in the presence of a married couple who had been married for over 50 years, and something sad had happened in the family, and the husband had actually broken down in tears and was emotional. And the wife turned to me in admiration of her husband, and she just said, I will never plumb the depths of that man's soul. It's so beautiful. After 50 years, she's still in awe at the depths of the love that this man has. I mean, you'd think it would be the same as before. You would think that life would be boring. Life is boring when it's neutral. Life is boring when it's anonymous. Life is boring when it's nothing but the product of a system. But life is not supposed to be the product of a system. Systems are supposed to be the products of life, okay? And that life is always unique and therefore open to new solutions and possibilities. There's always a way to do it better, and there's always a better goal to shoot at. Even if we've perfected something, and again, I'm not saying that we should be disruptive about life and just go through it innovating all the time. No, that's very annoying. It's kind of like the idea guy who walks around. He's always got a new idea. But at the same time, I don't think we should ever give up on our passion for life, and therefore ever give up on our quest to live in the best of ways, to seek after the higher things, right? In a broken world of sin, you no longer seek after the higher things. You seek after what's most immediately comfortable for you. And of course, that has huge impacts in the world of business and the way that workers are then exploited and the markets are strangled, competition is throttled, etc. Because in the end, if it's only about us and about ease, well, then why would we want to find any other way than the way that's most profitable for ourselves? That's not the world of the Christian. The Christian was sent into that broken world to remind it that we were to dare great things, that we can find new ways, that we can always live in a better culture in our companies and in our world of enterprise, that together we can solve great problems. But we can only do that when we let our freedom really be free. You know, as a priest, people know that I hear confessions, and as every priest, and when you hear confessions, you think, gosh, everyone thinks, oh my gosh, that's got to be so dramatic, and I assure you, it's not, because everyone sins in the same way. Just as everybody loves in a way that's absolutely uniquely expressive of themselves, and therefore is just wonderfully resplendent and beautiful in their love, so everyone is exactly the same in their sin. I mean, it gets to the point where the church just says, tell us the number and the kind. We don't need any details. We don't need any. We just need number and kind. Because in the end, sin is a destruction of something. It's a tearing down. Well, there's nothing creative about tearing down. You actually destroy what is creative and what is built. Well, so all you're telling me is I tore this down and I tore this down and I tore this down. Okay, that doesn't tell me what was there. That just tells me what you did, which was tear it down. Well, that's you see how negative that is, how sterile that is, and how sterilizing sin is. That's God's great plan. He takes a sinful heart, a sterile heart, a neutralized heart, and he lights it on fire. The beautiful thing about a flame is that it burns uniquely dependent upon what it sits on. And it expresses what's inside, the potential energy of everything that it burns. And this is the image that God gives for his Holy Spirit. Well, let's let the fire fall then, everybody. I mean, let's let God push us to new heights. Let's allow him to stir within us that great spirit of freedom to say, how will you love me today? How will you love God today? How will you love your family today? What's the unique, beautiful thing that from your heart, when you put love into your circumstances, what's it going to look like? That's the beauty of a Christian leader. We lead with the freedom that comes from God.
Dare great things for Christ.
Share your feedback with Father Nathan. Send us an email at communications@stjohninstitute.org. That's communications@stjohninstitute.org. And visit www.stjohninstitute.org and sign up for our newsletter to receive updates from Father Nathan.